Now you're going to do the masking and camouflaging interview. There are some rating forms that get at camouflaging and masking, but they aren't great. They don't have very good psychometric properties, and honestly, they pick up a lot of social anxiety. So we've elected to go with an interview instead to try to better tease that apart. So the first question is, how did you learn to do or what to do and say? How do you decide what to say? There are going to be a few of these questions here. And at that point, after those first few, you should have a pretty good sense of whether or not there's masking and camouflaging happening. Um, However, if you don't yet have a good sense about it, you can ask additional questions. You saw when I clicked yes, I got more questions, but if I had clicked no, I would be done with that section. So it's really up to the client's responses and what you're hearing back from them. Clients tend to fall kind of in one of two buckets. The ones who talk about doing a lot of masking and working really hard at it, and the ones who really don't even think to do it. It doesn't occur to them. So most of the time, you should have a pretty clear idea before you get to the CLO section. And then this next section is the mental status checklist. So this is something you do when you're finished with the client, but you know how they were dressed for the occasion, how they appeared to be groomed as well as you can tell, how alert they seemed, whether they were engaged and participated in the session, what their use of eye gaze was, what their affect was like, whether their affect was congruent with what they were talking about, or were they, laughing when talking about a death in the family or whatever, incongruent. What was their comprehension with language? This is often really helpful to think about when you're thinking of that cognitive question. Somebody who needed almost all the questions reworded to support their understanding and they didn't do well with the cognitive questions is probably somebody with an possibly somebody with an intellectual disability where, we would want to be really cautious about whether or not we proceeded. And what's the client's use of language? And then any other notes from your observations you want to put here would be really helpful. And then this next section is the one we already talked about earlier when we did the conversational press and tried to chat with somebody. When you get done with all of that and you clear all of your red boxes from down here and make sure you've answered all those questions, you can click the box to mark that S1 is occurred, and that will end your first S1.